So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining. And we just to go through the formalities to start with. The no apologies. I think we're all here. And any declarations anyone needs to add to the usual? If not, can we agree the minutes of the last meeting, which was circulated? All very fine. And anything on action, Ian?
No, Michael, not that's not covered on the paper.
So we can go straight into your overview report, please.
Thank you, Michael. Hopefully most of what I've set out in the report is self-explanatory. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things, if I may. One of which is just to say that since we wrote the papers, the consultation process on Grove Road has now commenced on Monday, so that is now live. It is, as you'll have seen, all online or virtual, but we've sought to find a number of means to engage with as wide a group of people as possible, whether that's webinars or having a phone line, etc. So we're doing sort of pretty much everything that we can do other than having a face-to-face or a traditional exhibition type style. The second thing to mention is just in respect to the fast track agreements. Those have actually, I've signed them yesterday. They've just been picked up by the courier about half an hour ago, and they're now winging their way back to the solicitors. So we should exchange on those on Friday is the plan. There are 4 separate parties to those agreements, so there are documents that are circulating around the country at the moment, and we do plan to exchange on Friday. You can see then the timetable set out in 2.4 for the expected delivery of the tunnels themselves, and you'll remember that we're partnering here with KCC, who will actually be the delivery agent for that. Other than that, Michael, I didn't have anything else to add to my paper.
Thank you. Well, obviously a lot of thought has gone into the reoccupation of the office premises. Did any member of the board have any questions on that?
I had one, Michael, if I may.
Yeah.
It's just what I see that the construction costs to be refined, Ian, and hopefully accepted in December. What happens if those costs aren't accepted?
Oh, well, there's we spent quite a lot of time in the agreement, Michael, on that particular thing about sort of 6 months ago, working out exactly what would happen, and we've agreed a number of sort of mechanisms in the contract, one of which could be us looking to put more money in, and then if we do, on what basis do we do that? So the contracts provide for those scenarios. If we did need to put more money in, it would obviously have to come back to the board for a decision on that. So yeah, the contracts provide for those mechanisms.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thanks, Michael.
Okay, and then do you want to? Yeah.
Yeah, Ian, just in terms of how we operate going forward, and patently you're looking to bring people back on a sort of a rotational basis into the office or a needs basis. I guess with all the potential outlook looking as though things are not going to get better in the short term, and indeed they may actually sort of go backwards actually as we go through Christmas. I'm just wondering whether it's not opportune to just reassess any hardware requirements for board members or team members, just to make sure that actually if we're going to be operating like this for another 6, 9, 12 months, just picking up a few of the conversations about who can see what and who has access to what versions of Teams. I just think it may be opportune to revisit that on the assumption that actually this is going to be normal for another 9 or 12 months. And do we need to fine tune or tweak some of those arrangements going forward?
Absolutely. So if I speak about the staff first, we've been supporting staff with additional equipment to allow them to work at home. That's everything from making sure people have got proper keyboards and stands for their laptops, second screens, etc. And quite importantly, a proper supportive chair, for example. Yeah, and we're always reminding and offering staff to do to make sure they've got the right equipment. I think it's a really good point about the board, because as you say, we might be doing this for a little while longer. We had a conversation at that, I think, maybe at an IIP, and we're very happy to have a sort of offline conversation with everybody to see whether they would like anything else. I think Louise made the point that she already had 3 laptops, so probably wouldn't want another one. Yeah, very happy to do it, and I think we should, Dave, because we need to make it as easy as possible for these processes to work effectively.
Yeah, and also
I think the time, with Teams.
Also to set a minimum standard that we would expect the board members to be achieving in terms of their hardware and ability to dial in, etc.
I think, can I suggest you ask your IT people to look at Microsoft Teams, because I think if you sign in as a guest, that gets the problem. If you sign in on an account name, then you're into the main system. Now, board members, I don't certainly have an account name, email address. If we had those, even if we don't use them for other things, but use it just for this, we may then better dial into the main body of the meeting and have all the facilities, which you don't have when you come in as a guest. Yeah. I think it's as simple as that.
We'll look at that, John. Yeah.
I think it also depends how the invites are sent, because I've got a different experience now to the last meeting. Anyway.
Thank you.
Jeremy, did you have a question to me?
Yes, it was really just to say that if it helps Michael along, I do think that we do have a suitably supportive chair.
Thank you.
Do you know, as soon as I said that, I knew there was going to be a comment about that.
And the bridge opening, Ian, we're going to have a virtual bridge opening.
Of sorts, yes. So the contractors and ourselves have been talking about how best to do that, and there is going to be a low key, I suppose, I won't call it a ceremony because it's not really that, but we felt it was appropriate to mark the occasion, particularly with all the staff that have worked on the bridge and delivered it so successfully. So a few organisations have been invited down who've been part of it, some of the subcontractors. We're limiting numbers to 1 or 2 people from each organisation, but it's going to be a very low-key affair. We expect it to open to traffic, pedestrians, cycles on the 24th in the evening sometime. We still would like to, if it doesn't become overtaken by events, to have the larger community event that we were talking about previously. Obviously that's not possible at the moment, but you know, we'll just have to see how long it is before we might be able to put on such an event, and whether it still is irrelevant really at that time. So
yeah, thank you. And then you noted that BNP are now on board. Is that a team of named individuals, or is it just a helpline?
No. So there are named staff, somebody that will be looking after our contract, and then they've got 1 or 2 subcontractors. So for things like security or enforcement action, etc. So yeah, we've got named individuals. It's not just a helpline.
And are those local or central London?
The subcontractors.
No, I mean the chiefs, not the Indians.
Yeah, Julia, it might have to help me out where the individuals we're actually working with are based.
Yeah, so the named individuals are local to us in the surrounding area. So, and they know the area well as well. And what we've done is we have they have novated our existing contractors over. So we've retained all the local knowledge that we needed to as well.
Thank you. Other questions on Ian's report? Okay, we can move on. We're now into Ebbsfleet living, which has been circulated, and I invite any questions or points, please, on that section. Everyone's.
Can I raise one question?
Yeah.
Just to say, I wonder, Kevin, whether we have given any thought to having a community board meeting, perhaps a virtual meeting, to enable us to keep in touch with community members.
Okay. Don't know whether the chairman of the community board wants to address that.
Exactly the point I was going to make. But Sandra, I put my hand up properly on the system, you see, and you rushed in and asked the same question. I do think. I think the lockdown survey was excellent, and I think the responses were amazing. And although there were what you'd predict, I think, to be concerns about what doesn't exist yet in the form of a network for a brand new community, I think there were amazing signs that just taking part in the survey was a great sign of community, and the ideas they came forward with, I think, were excellent. I think Kevin's got in the report a whole range of things to progress for the year in terms of events and happenings and things to bring the community together. I do think it is time now. I must be honest, Kevin did ask me early on in lockdown whether we should have a meeting. I thought it was too early then because we weren't entirely had much to say really. But I do think now, as we start to emerge, it would be very, very good to have a Zoom meeting and or a Teams meeting, and to try and bring people together and see exactly how and what part they want to play in the calendar ahead.
Excellent.
Sorry, just to say as well with that, Jeremy, we have been using the community board to kind of touch base and give us ideas. As you said, they give us lots of ideas about the questions. They've been really good at getting responses to the questions. We've also asked them if they'd help us maybe give some advice on some of the community buildings as they're evolving. So we're going to, I think I copied you into last week, we're going to have a session with them just to kind of look through some of the schemes as they're emerging. We would normally have sort of co-design external events, but because we can't have that at the minute, we thought at least the community board would be a good way of touching in with that. So obviously yourself and Sandra will be invited to that as well. But okay. I'll look to having a more formal meeting. Probably August is probably not going to be the best time, so probably end of August, September would be right.
Sounds good. Any other points, please, for Kevin? No, we move on to Mark's communications report. Again, circulated.
Thank you, Kevin. Very good.
Yeah. So anything on comms in the way of a question? It's all there to read.
Yes, please, Michael. And it's around sentiment. The sentiment pie chart is showing some variation in colour on it for once. I wonder whether we could hear just a little bit of detail behind that.
Yeah, sure. You're talking about the negative sentiment, are you?
Yeah, because normally we're pretty blank on that. Whereas we've got a little quadrant, and it could just be 1 out of 6, but you know.
Yeah, no, it was a couple of comments that were made on Twitter by actually David Moat, and to be fair, they weren't negative comments at all. He was commenting about the pizza application up in Northfleet, but it wasn't negative at all in any way, as far as I could see. But the computer deemed them to be negative.
I'll tell David. I'll tell David.
I'm going to defer to Jeremy to come up with a quip back on that one.
Well, he just walks under this negative cloud. That's the trouble.
Any other points, please? No, so we can move on to planning. There's a comment on the school saga. Does anyone have any points they'd like to raise on planning?
One, Chairman. In the middle of the report, we're talking about building for life and the quality of buildings that planning are trying to achieve. And just going back to the Kevin's item, in that survey, lockdown survey, there were quite a few comments about internal qualities of properties in terms of ventilation and things like that. And I was just wondering if there's any way we can were those comments fair in terms of the quality of housing we're now approving and building? So it's a question to the planners really, but I'm just wondering whether that is a perception problem or a reality problem, that we're still not actually building the quality which we should be, and whether the Building for Life thing will guarantee that we are building the quality that people expect.
Good point.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Yeah, I mean, obviously all the schemes since I think it was April 2018 have been against the existing Building for Life. There were schemes that were done before that that did drop down below the Building for Life assessment because we didn't use that from day one. So I'm not quite sure, obviously, where those residents were living. Obviously, all the existing houses have to comply with building regs. What the new Building for Life does is it includes that sort of healthy agenda. Right. So it sort of adds in bits and bobs about ventilation and sort of, you know, more and more information about light and temperature and things like that. So I think it's really interesting that the health agenda has been sort of added in, and I think it'll be really helpful for us moving forward. So we just need to do some engagement with the developers to understand how that'll work and how we can use it moving forward. But I think it's a positive sign, the fact that it just sort of keeps the quality agenda moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Michael, can I just add a comment on that, because Kevin could probably confirm the exact figure, but I think the lockdown survey revealed that it was either 83 or 87% of people were actually quite satisfied with their property. There were then the comments that because we went through a particularly hot spell that people suffer with ventilation, but actually the percentage of people reporting that they were content with their house was actually very high.
Yeah,
you need to say, and it was 83% of people were happy with their homes. The issues that they raised were primarily about noise and ventilation and things like that, which currently aren't covered in building regulations. So there are things that are sort of sitting outside building regulations, but there are things that I think some of the developers are already trying to address. And I know Countryside and Clarion are looking at these sort of issues in their schemes. So it is things that people are aware of. And our lockdown survey was just very helpful in that it highlighted that they are issues for us. And it's more because the homes are quite good. So because the homes have been well insulated and well built, then sometimes overheating becomes an issue. But it is something we're quite aware of.
I think you'll find it's actually covered in planning law. The latest guidance coming out of government on ventilation and heat gain in properties is quite clear in the guidance background. It's not building regs issue, that's the ventilation, but the heat build up and purging and excess heat in the property is covered under planning. We should be dealing with it through there.
Yeah. All very good. If there's nothing else on planning, we move on to finance report. All very clear. Are there any questions on that, please? Thanks, Gerard. Everyone's happy. We now take the public questions and responses, which have been circulated as usual. Does anyone have any comment? I think we've received one set and that's been dealt with. So we can move to have those placed on the website and close part one of our session, and recording will now stop.